Warning, some viewers may find the content of this podcast disturbing or shocking. Please be advised.
Access to the Monte will be granted shortly. Please stand by.
So, Monty, don't forget, it's the Monte Zone. It's Friday and it's 8 p.m., yeah?
Got it, G. I got it. It's Wednesday. It's 8 o'clock. It's...
The Monte Zone!
It's Friday.
Zone
God damn it,
Friday!
I still got it wrong. Anyway, we are here.
Round of applause, anyway.
Round of applause, anyway. One day, I'll get it right. One day. I don't know. Today's not going to be that day. But, gee, we're back on time at the end of the month. Bang on near the last day of the month. Or is the last day of the month? We're just, ready to go.
Our consistency points are maxing out so far this year.
Through the roof. I was about to hold my hand up then to say we're going through the roof, but then I realised I didn't want to do a Musk. We're going through. Oh, no.
No.
Like that. There you go.
Not a good
through the
look.
roof.
Yeah.
Yes. Good evening. Welcome to the Monte Zone with myself, Monte Man, and my co-host, G. Redverse, from the Underground Paradox. Here to talk about all things paranormal.
And G-Star Vault.
And G-Star Vault on this very platform, yes. Today, we're going to be talking about a subject of celebrity deaths and conspiracies surrounding celebrities that have passed away. So it's a bit of a weird topic this week.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on it before, though.
Yes. Well,
I think we did. There was quite a bit within. I think we did a podcast about conspiracies or something, didn't we? And then within that, because I know that we've talked about MJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about a couple of conspiracies around that. So, yeah.
And I
weird. Sorry, I've just seen Sean's comment in chat. Weird topic this week as opposed to other weeks.
Yeah, well, you got us there. Yeah, okay, all right,
Yes,
fair enough. Fair point.
we are the Quan of weird.
Yeah,
So
yeah. He's got us. Yeah, hook, line, sinker, and copy of Angular Times. Yeah. Hopefully, yeah, the comments are synced. We'll be going to full screen in a bit, but I just thought just for the beginning we'll put comments up on the screen. Yes, so we will have. I've got a few little news items first before we get into the main topic.
cool. Well, and as you know, I've got a few plugs and stuff that I want to talk about. So yeah,
Always with the
not
plugs.
actual plugs, but you know that'd be boring.
And
But,
not hair
yeah,
plugs.
it's promoted.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
No, you don't need them, lucky bastard. Yeah. So first, well, one news item that I was going to mention was the JFK files being released, but we're going to cover that a bit later on, because it's related. It was timely. It relates to the very topic we're talking about today. So that all kind of fell in line. But the first bit of news that's come up recently is from Giza. Have you heard about the announcement from Giza?
Not if it's anything different from what we last discussed. I can't remember if that was when you guested on Vault, but I was talking about a couple of Egyptian things there. So if it's anything different to that, there was the latest news that I heard was about the digging of the Queen tomb that wasn't on the history line, or the known history line of Egyptian history. But if it's not that, then no, I haven't heard about it.
No, in the past week or week and a half, I think it's about a week and a half, there's been an announcement that a team that do radar, ground penetrating radar from using satellites.
Is this about the big columns?
Yeah. Found they're the same people that found like a city in the Amazon rainforest, because it found like houses and street layouts and things. They've announced that they found columns, spiral columns and well shafts that go down thousands of feet underneath the Khafre pyramid. And they think they found 5 like king's chambers inside the Khafre pyramid, spaced out evenly inside the pyramid, which sounds completely crazy. The thing looks a bit like this. I found a diagram. Let me share. I don't know if anybody in chat's heard about this.
There's lots of jokes about Giza. Like Sean was, which Giza is this? And then Smiler was a diamond Giza.
So you imagine that's Khafre's pyramid, right? Mm-hmm. There's the king's chambers with the relieving chambers above them. And here are the giant well shafts with spiraling, descending, like stairways, I guess.
See, I wonder how long they've known about this, because there was a theory that popped up a little while back about the fact that we've known for quite a long time that there's quite a solid theory that the pyramid was used for some sort of energy conversion, because of the fact that of what it was originally covered with was a conductor, things like that. Evening, Mickey. And so there was a theory that popped up a couple of years back about how like the main pyramid was like almost like a battery for the surrounding, because they believe that the city that surrounded there and that region was quite huge at one point, and quite expansive, and they believe that this theory was saying that this building, the main pyramid, was a kind of like energy plant for all of that city. And I wondered whether they knew about this, because to me this looks like some sort of battery energy conversion storage.
Well, the thing is, what you got to get about in this is scale, right? Because these square things at the bottom apparently are empty chambers, right? Empty s- cube chambers, like thousands and thousands of feet. I mean, you imagine a person would be just a pixel here. I mean, you're talking, these columns are 1.5 times as long, as high as the Empire State's Building, right? These cubes are taller than the Statue of Liberty. I mean, you're talking absolutely gigantic. I mean, massive. So yeah.
How much credence do you think there is, though, to the evidence that's been presented? Because I saw this, because when you asked me about it, I said no, because I didn't really. I saw this and then I thought, oh, this is another one of those bloody far-fetched theories. They've sort of seen something on a scanner and they're sort of, you know, a bit like what happened with the object in the North Sea that I've done a couple of episodes on. You know, that was similar, that it had been picked up by scans and things like that. So I don't know how much of this is like, you know, solid.
Well, this is what the data looks like, the scans in reality. And a lot of the critics are saying, you know, it's almost noise. How can you tell what's what and what's noise? But yeah, it's basically, I think we should maybe in the next Monte zone, or one of the next Monte zones, have an Egypt-based one and have this as a
No, we
as a bit
said
of a
we
topic.
were going to.
I think we were going to thinking about having one coming up, so I think maybe this has just hastened the need to add that to.
Yeah.
But I just thought I'd bring it up because it's sort of hot off the press this week.
Yeah, it was a good one to bring up. As I said, I've just been left, as you know from discussions that we've had recently, I've just been left jaded and skeptical about a lot of things now, and I see it and I go, oh, that's probably not real. Yeah, because there's so many things that just, you know, they seem genuine and then they're just absolutely not.
Well,
So
I'll tell you where I lay on it. Where I
lay on it
off the bat, without going any deeper, is a bit like ground penetrating radar, right? It can only go like feet into soil. So finding like city layouts in undergrowth in a rainforest, it's really good for that because it can show up a lot of detail, quite shallow ground. But this is like thousands of feet into solid bedrock, and that's not what ground penetrating radar is designed to do. So I'm automatically skeptical about it because of the technology that is being used out of context. So I don't know. We need to look at it a bit further. And
we'll delve into it a little bit deeper on the next one.
Yeah. I forgot to say, actually, at the beginning here, here's me carrying on. I forgot to say hello to everybody in live chat. So, hi, Courtney. Thank you for coming along, sir. Hello to our wrench, Smiler Rainbow. She's busy working on schoolwork in her office. So I hope that's going well. Mr. Tavikins. Mr. Tavikins is in the house.
Yes, the beard was here.
The beard is here. Good evening to you, sir. Mickey's Aquariums. I hope your fish are doing well. It's good to see Mickey on. Always good to see Mickey on. So, yeah, hello to everybody in live chat world.
And I forgot to say I'm making my way through a bottle of spiced rum with my favorite accompaniment.
Coke.
Being Coke. Yeah.
I had a cup of tea in my giant mug.
Who are you? Have we swapped roles?
I should get a glass of wine or something. Maybe if I talk to Smiler Rainbow nicely, something magical will happen.
Yes, Mickey, grab a beer. Yes.
Yeah, oh yes. You got to grab a beer, and I will try to
Courtney's
do the same.
put a comment in. It wasn't actually a GPR scan. It was some other sort of scan using electromagnetic waves. Yeah. I'm still dubious. Until we, like we've discussed, we will look into it and try and find out as much of the different arguments. Smiler's asking whether you've got any requests, Monty.
Oh no, just a glass of red out there. If there's a bottle of red in my wine rack
Blood
somewhere,
wine.
that would be amazing.
Where you driving to? Well, actually, no. Don't tell us. Don't be messaging and driving.
Yeah, it is kind of like a ground penetrate. I mean, yes, it is because it's high. It's like high frequency waves are bounced into the ground, and you can tell by the reflection of what you get back. And it's the same sort of thing. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But it's exciting. I think it's exciting. I'm certainly excited because whether it's picked up exactly what they think or whether it's something else, and when we actually, further investigations or whatever might find. The thing that I'm really dubious about is because they did muon scans in the Caffrey pyramid in the chamber, and they're both really nice wines. I'll go with the I can't do a Cabellier. No, the other one. Yeah, the other one. I'm having a nice wine
Couldn't
tonight.
possibly do a Cabellier. Need to have that with fish.
Yeah, it's some of the nice wines my sister got me for Christmas. I'm onto those, so it's like I got none of the cheap stuff left. So it's going to be something nice. Gosh, yeah. So what was I saying? Don't know. Oh, next thing.
Yes, you were saying about dubious. Yeah, you were still saying you were still talking about.
Yeah, but it'd be
dubious.
just exciting, wouldn't it, to see if something else comes with it with
Well,
further
look, if
investigations,
it does turn out to be the case, it's more than exciting. It's mind blowing, like what that means into like because you just pointed out.
Oh,
These
muons.
structures are the size of, the Empire State's building. Like, I think it makes the answer pretty strong that there's been some other intervention on this planet in some period of history and, Homo sapien development.
Yeah.
Because, it would just be like, and that's why I think we just definitely need to look into it and be sure that it is, something kosher.
That's what I was saying. Muon scans in the pyramid shown that the pyramid was solid and there was nothing inside it. Now, muon scans in the Great Pyramid highlighted things like the corridor above the entrance that we didn't know was there, and we've since had cameras in and seen it. It's so accurate that we can see little corridors like that, but it didn't pick up 5 massive chambers inside Caffrey's pyramid. So I'm a little bit skeptical about, does that mean the muon scans didn't work? Or, again, further investigation.
Or maybe they didn't look underneath. Maybe they didn't scan underneath. Maybe they just
they scanned from the what do you call it? The main chamber inside Caffrey, looking up at the pyramid. Thank you, my darling. Oh, it's been aerated as well. That's going above and beyond, isn't it, really?
Jesus Christ, you yuppies.
Well, if you're having a nice wine, you have to have it aired. So you've got to pass it through an aerate.
Of course you do. Of course you do. These things are important in life. This makes all the difference to the taste buds.
Oh, my God. That is fantastic.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I got one more thing.
Yeah, go on, because I haven't got anything except my own plugs.
One more thing. Here we go. So, myself and G were outside Mazam at Bob's house, my sister who co-hosts the Star Trek review show with us on Wednesdays. We were there for her birthday a couple of weeks ago, and having a barbecue.
Is there any audio on this that I was
Yes.
talking? Because I was pretty mashed by this point.
Well, we both were. We were both pretty mashed.
Okay.
I can turn the audio off. It's just the visuals.
No, it's fine.
But so I looked up at the sky and I just saw a pinpoint of light, like a satellite moving by. And I thought, oh, look, a satellite. That's bloody bright. And then we saw another satellite following close behind it. And I was like, and it dawned in my head that about 4 hours before our Bobby, earlier in the evening, the Falcon rocket carrying Dragon took off to go dock with the ISS, the International Space Station, to pick up Crew 9, who have been on the space station for, I think, a year at this point. They went up for about 6 weeks, ended up staying there for about a year because their ride ended up springing a leak, and then got brought back down this week. And so this is what we saw. To bring the stranded astronomers down. That went up today and is docking with the International Space Station. Do you think that's it? So you can see the International Space Station there. And there.
On the same trajectory.
I bet that's fucking it. That's the Falcon. That's the Falcon 9. That's the
Dragon. Fucking it.
It's Dragon. It's Dragon, Monte. But you know, you got the gist. Anyway, I then went on my app to have a look at where the ISS was at that time, and lo and behold, it was just passing over the southwest of England. And I was like, oh my god. I can't believe it. I was so happy. It really made my night, that did.
It's getting closer.
Yeah, well, it will do. It's going faster than it. So anyway.
Need to mute the video, says Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we got some. So just to explain to everybody, I'm very proud of myself in this moment, because as soon as Monty started talking about it and we started looking up in the sky, my instincts after the last 12 months that I've had and things that have happened when I've been out and seeing things and filming and whatever, sort of I'm getting better and better. And as soon as we were looking up in the sky, I was like, right, that's it, get camera out. And
You're capturing this.
Got this caught on camera. But I thought we had some better footage where you could clearly see the two objects moving at the same time.
Yeah, this is it.
Oh, right. I can only see one. Oh,
yeah,
no, I can see the other now.
The second one's here.
Yeah. Let us know in chat if you can see it on your device. It is very tiny.
Zoom in. No.
Yeah, anyway. I don't think you can, when you share the video like that, you can't.
No. But anyway, there you go. That was that.
Well, that was very cool that we caught it on camera. If you couldn't see it, let us know. We'll maybe do I could do a chop zoom in edit of it and just upload it as a short onto the channel or something if people want to have a look at it. Really interesting though.
Trucker Timbo says about the Giza scans that if they do actually find anything, they're not going to tell the media about it because it means rewriting the history books, and Giza specialists and the authorities there, they don't like anything that counteracts their carefully crafted narrative.
Well, this is the fight that Graham Hancock is having, and other people, trying to change. A lot of archaeologists are probably one of the most stubborn fields of science, I guess, for being really just stuck on their narrative. I mean, that was really heavily exposed in that. I hate to talk about it because I refuse to watch him anymore. But what's the guy with the big YouTube program? Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, when there was an episode on there where Graham Hancock was on there, and they'd invited along a representative of the American Archaeological Society, and afterwards they found loads of examples of just where this guy was just talking out of his ass to create the argument. And Rogan Josh,
yeah, that's what I nearly said. Sean heard my brain.
It's true. It's there's a lot of people out there that are trying to, because there's things that have been found that just won't break the ice and get into that real big, what do they call it? The sort of core narrative, because there's just people blocking it constantly and just denouncing it, and a lot of their denouncing doesn't offer a lot of credibility either. It's like an example, we're going to talk probably a little bit about it in a minute, but the Warren Report is like another good example. That's an official document made by official people after a official investigation, and it's just the biggest piece of craziest nonsense ever, produced to explain a circumstance. So corrupt.
Yeah.
All I got to say on that.
Indeed. So, moving on to the main topic of the evening. Conspiracy theories around celebrity deaths.
Well, yeah, before we get into that, I've got to do my plugs.
Oh, go for it then. Go on, do your plugs. Plug away.
Well, so the first plug I have been mentioning since last Sunday, and I sort of dropped it in there on the Star Trek review show. I'm coming back this Sunday, so not tomorrow, but the day after, if you can work out your days of the week. And I'm coming back with I've got a special guest this Sunday. I'm going to be coming back with part 2 of thought-provoking movies. And this time it's going to be on movies within the sort of supernatural, hauntings, ghost, paranormal. And the guest that I've got coming along to join me, and I said I would announce it here just as a special treat for all you guys. So it's going to be someone who's been on the channel before. He's an author of Haunted Devon and Haunted Plymouth. And it's going to be Kevin Hines. Is going to be joining me on Sunday as a guest on the show, telling me his 3 favorite movies within that realm that have influenced him in his journey to do his stuff that he does as a medium and as a paranormal investigator and an author. So yeah, and then I'm going to be talking about my 3 favorite films within that genre as well. So
that's going to be cool.
Yeah, if you like the spookiness and you're into movies, or you're into Kevin, or you're into me, come along on Sunday and join me at 8 p.m.
I am going to be there, hopefully, in live chat on Sunday. I'm actually working, but I'm going to be listening to you and working, and hopefully we'll be in live chat to join in the discussion.
Awesome. So,
yes.
And secondly, I have obviously been, last Sunday we talked a lot about on G-Star Vault. It was all about the episode that I'd uploaded onto the Underground Paradox, which is called UAPs in Cornwall. And, whilst out there, I sort of unexpectedly caught something strange on camera, which still struggling to explain. And I know that you haven't watched it, Monte, yet, so I need to be careful that I don't say too much that puts in spoilers. But I did just want to bring one more, because I'm still racking my brains about what this thing could be. After both the live last Sunday and after my video on Underground Paradox, I've had plenty of people chip in with possible theories. The thing is, most of them that come back, it just doesn't stand up to this sort of question of the fact that the phone camera could see this object, but my naked eye couldn't see this object. And so that instantly dismisses a lot of suggestions. However, since I've done both of those shows, I've been racking my brains, and I continue to rack my brains for a logical solution, because I believe there should be one. And the only thing that I'm starting to think, I'm starting to think of now, Hynek would absolutely love this, but I'm starting to think of like sort of natural phenomenon that could explain it. So what I thought about is, if there was a body of water, whether it be a pond, a lake, or whatever, that in that footage, and both in the daytime and the nighttime footage that I shot, you just can't see this. And there's a light that's pointing at that water, and it's pushing it up into the air, creating a phenomenon that could be seen by my camera on my phone, but cannot be seen by my naked eye. That's another explanation that I'm going to offer. I mean, I have obviously made everybody aware as part of this process that I've had a diagnosis about my eyes, and I've had to kind of be honest that I don't think it would be a far reach to say that that's the reason why I couldn't see this object with my naked eye, but the camera could, because the condition that I'm struggling with is too much light, not the absence of light. So I don't, but I had to offer it up. But I'm just looking for a logical reason. But now I'm starting to think whether there's like a mixture of a natural phenomenon and then like a camera anomaly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's
like
a
for
mixture of the
example,
two.
during the day, if you go out and film a car window through the camera, quite often it looks like rainbowy. It's like I've got a film over it through the camera. Looks like a bubble almost, you know. But then when you look at it through your eyes, it just looks like pure see-through glass, because the camera can pick up wavelengths of UV radiation, because your windows of your car are coated in a film that reflects UV light, you know, to stop your eyes, stop the people burning underneath. So the window reflects UV light. Your camera picks that up and displays it as like a rainbowy like effect, but your eyes can't see it because your eyes can't see UV light. Could be something like that. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I gotta watch it.
Yeah, you'll have to. I mean, the camera work's not great because that's something that I've talked about openly that I'm trying to work on, because I do this thing where I've got this really bad habit that when I'm filming stuff, especially when I surprisingly capture stuff and I'm like, well, what the hell is that? I do this thing where instead of keeping the camera where it is and move my head around to look, I'll like drop the camera down and then look and then bring the camera back up.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, one thing that I've got, like I've had to keep repeating and is important for people to know, and the reason why I believe there should be a logical explanation for this thing, because I feel quite confident that it is a certain sort of static light source, but the thing didn't move, like in my knowledge. But what was curious is that when I went back to that same spot sort of like 40 minutes later, I couldn't get it on the camera. I couldn't find it. So yeah. But just thought I'd talk about that because that is a new theory that I've been kind of considering, like a natural environmental situation, and then a combination of that managed with the fact that cameras can pick up something that maybe the human eye can't. You know, one thing that somebody said to me, I think in one of the comments, was could it be in a lens flare? And again, that was kind of frustrating because you kind of really got to know before you say something that there's a lens flare, know how a lens flare works. And because the object in this footage that I've got is pretty much dominantly purpley pink, you need to then have something else on the screen that's purpley pink that would be giving off that lens flare. And there isn't, and you can clearly see there isn't anything that's of that color.
Kind of moves with the camera as well as you move the camera, so you can see the lens flare.
Yeah, and this wasn't, because it was completely static. You know, when I was filming it with the camera.
Wookie says
until
hi.
I move the camera with my hand.
Wookie's in live chat. He says hi. He's great. He means late, and that's the Wookie. The Wookie's in the house. Yes. Right. Well, now Wookie's here, we can carry on with our main event, the topic of this evening. And I'd say we came up with this topic about a month ago because of the sad demise of Gene Hackman. Had recently passed away, and at the time there was a lot of unknowns around his death, and it was in kind of mysterious circumstances, because Gene, unfortunately, not only did Gene Hackman pass away, but so did his wife, Betsy Arakawa. They both passed away at the same time, along with one of their dogs. I think they had 3 dogs. I think 2 of them survived, and one who was locked in the bathroom or in a cupboard or something, unfortunately passed away from dehydration. And there was a lot of like speculation going around the media at that time, wondering what happened. I think it was something like 94 or 95, I think. But there was things like the bodies were mummified. Why was one dog locked up? How did they both die at the same time? Was it carbon monoxide poisoning? A lot of speculation was going on. And it just made us think, didn't it? Well, that could be a topic for a discussion on the Monte zone. And it was looking like Gene Hackman had the sort of best of both worlds, because quite often someone keeps their fame going after they've passed by having that kind of conspiracy nature around their deaths. And then it's quite often younger in life, right? So, like, they hadn't reached old age yet, like Marilyn Monroe or Steve McQueen or people like that. And then there's a lot of conspiracies about their past, so their name lives on because of that very nature. But it seems like he got to the mid-90s. He reached the end of his life, yet still managed to... Sorry, 94.
Yeah, I think it's 94.
94, and yet still had a... conspiracy nature around the way he passed, so he kind of got the best of both worlds. But since then, there's been a lot more that's come out, so it seems that unfortunately his wife Betsy passed away first, and poor Gene was kind of bedridden and had late stage Alzheimer's, and unfortunately because his wife was no longer there to take care of him, quickly followed suit. That's what it's looking like. Eh?
So how did the dog die?
We don't know. We don't know why that particular dog was in the bathroom at the time. Don't know.
Still questions.
There's still questions.
And also, I think what they were saying is that they think that there was about 14 days between time of death and discovery.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were mummified in that sort of short period of time also poses some questions.
Well, potentially mummified, yeah. We haven't got any alleged, I would have to say, on that one. Yeah.
Did he whistleblow anything?
Well, there was talk, wasn't there, about the Epstein files and, whether he had any...
That came from Trucker Timbo, by the way.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah, whether he had any, part in that. I mean, bearing in mind he had late-stage Alzheimer's, I'm not sure he would have been in any position to really have an input, to be honest. But again, that's if he did, and that's what they're saying. So I don't know. But
it was what brought us to this idea, right?
Well, that brought us to the idea because it just
as we were talking about at the start of the show, we kind of have touched on little parts of this here, there, and there when we've had other conspiracy theory episodes. But, we've never had a program stream completely dedicated to it.
Sean points out he was in the film Enemy of the State.
Yeah, he was.
He was. Yeah. He was a great actor,
in a lot
actually.
Of films.
He was a great actor.
He'll always be Lex Luthor to me.
Always. Yeah. Will always be Lex Luthor. Superman finally got his revenge. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah. But funnily enough, not funny. There's nothing funny about any of this topic, but coincidentally, not long after we decided to do this topic and we're coming up to this live stream, then Trump's administration decides to release the JFK files. So that was like, oh wow. So because obviously JFK is another one of those big. Well, it's the big conspiracy, isn't it? Really, it doesn't get much bigger than JFK.
It's one of those ones where, and I am going to do a bit of a vault. I'm sort of in the background. I'm slowly building different points of view and different theories, but it's a bit like the Twin Towers in terms of conspiracy, if not more so than the Twin Towers, because there's just so much evidence that goes to show that there was a conspiracy and that there was something untoward that happened, but we just can't get the truth. Now, just to clarify, as Monte's pointed out, all these files were released recently, but it wasn't the entirety of all of the secret files. In fact, it was 2,200 more files. There was previously a release of some back in 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is more. And it consists of more than 63,000 pages, and they're posted on the US National Archives and Records Administration website. I went on there and started having a look at some, but honestly, am I going to sit there and trawl through 2,200 files? No, I'm not. I just wanted to see what they kind of look like.
You're just not dedicated to this live stream, Gary. Gee, you should, you need to get, put more time into it.
I was like, is he being serious? Like, what the hell? Yeah, no. I really wish I could. If I was going to do like a whole JFK episode, 6-part series, I might invest that time into it. But elsewise, I've got a life to live. But yeah, just waiting for other people to read it and then tell you what they found, right? Lazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was interesting, what was different about these files, and again, I don't know if you know this, Monte, but you get it when you get more of a clear understanding of it if you go on to the National Archives, as I said I did, and the Records of Administration, and you see that with these files that they've released on this time, they've not done any redacting. So basically, usually, even though they release secret and classified files, what they will still do is they will redact big parts of it out where it mentions people's names that are still living, or pertinent, that wouldn't want to be, we're in a generation of, heavy data protection, things like that. So it's actually very uncommon that all of this documentation was released without name redactions. So there's actually a thing on the National Archives website that when you go in to look into the files, it's got like a link or a telephone number if you've been heavily affected by the release of these documents because your name is in them and you're concerned about, because there are people that are alive. They've set up this helpline for them to phone to, make their concerns known. But yeah, that was an interesting factor. Even in Mazza, we were talking about you. Your ears must have been burning. She's just flying through.
She's just flying through. I just wanted to point out that Wookie said he thinks the dog got trapped in the bathroom. It trapped itself. It may have been one of those doors that's self-closed. It nudged its way through and then couldn't get back out again. My dog does that all the time in my bedroom. It opens the bedroom door, but because the bedroom door swings open and Vicky keeps her coat on the back of it, it springs off the coat and then closes behind it. So then he gets trapped in there, and then he's scraping away and barking because he's been trapped in the bedroom. But it might have been that kind of situation for the dog. Maybe.
Well, I'm not going to say his name too loudly because he's sleeping behind me. But Theo's done that once, where he locked himself in our small, guest bathroom, and then proceeded to try and eat through the door to get out.
Oh no! Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So yeah, it is a very possible possibility, and especially because I think he was in, was it Nevada or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
In his lodge in Nevada, or I think it was one of those Midwest states. So yeah, it probably would have been hot in the property, and
so
probably
sad
got
though, as
locked in the
Sean
toilet.
points out. So sad that a couple of that age, like, can be missing for weeks without anybody noticing.
Yeah, especially somebody of his notoriety.
There was one thing I forgot to say that only came out in the newspaper yesterday, that now it's been over a month since their deaths. None of the children or grandchildren have collected the body. They're still in police custody, the bodies, with the coroner, because the family haven't picked them up. Apparently the children are estranged, and so there's like some bad blood in the family. So it's very sad.
Oh,
it's very
shame.
Sad. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, going back to JFK. So what have you kind of gleaned from like looking into this about whether it's revealed anything shocking or interesting?
I can tell you what I found out, and you can tell me, elaborate more, or tell me if this was already known. But I've heard that one of the things that came out of it was that there was a CIA consultant named Gary. It's a great name. Gary Underhill, who told friends that a CIA clique was behind JFK assassination, that he found out whilst he was working for the CIA. He was afraid for his life. They got rid of JFK because he found that the CIA was doing a load of shady operations, including drug running and all sorts of dodgy shit. So told his friends that he was afraid of his life. Then, less than 6 months later, he was found shot dead. It was ruled suicide. However, he was shot behind his left ear in the side of his head, and he was right-handed. So how anybody would have ever done that? And it's not so much, well, I mean, that's really dodgy information in itself, but the main dodginess, I think, is the fact that the CIA have covered that information up for 63 years, and we've just found out about it in detail now from these files.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, you said just before you started talking about that, whether it was something that was known. I don't think that specific piece of information was known, but what I would say is that I think anybody that looks at this subject and goes, oh, you're making a mountain out of a molehill, stop, mate, you're deluded, because all you've got to do is look at official documents released by US official government, and that is the Warren Report, and it's, the magic bullet, and other things that are put in that report are just so ridiculous and so far-fetched to escape logic and reality. So that there's something untoward anyway. So I guess the fact that there's definitely it's confirmed that there was a conspiracy of sorts going on, I don't think is going to be a new piece of news to anybody.
Lee Harvey Oswald was being tracked by the CIA before the incident happened.
Yeah.
Which we knew, but we didn't know to the level of how much, because we know that I think he worked in Minsk in Russia, so he had Russian ties, so he was under heavy surveillance, and they certainly went through all his mail to and from Russia. So he was known to CIA and heavily known to the CIA before this incident. The guy that killed Lee Harvey Oswald was a chap called Jack Ruby. I think that's right.
Yes, that's correct.
And these files shown that Jack Ruby met with Lee Harvey Oswald in a nightclub weeks before the event, whilst they were both being surveyed by the CIA. Again, there's no smoking gun there. The fact that Jack knew Lee Harvey Oswald, met them before the incident, killed him after the incident, and they both were being connections were being surveyed by the CIA in a massive operation. And then the CIA covered it up for 63 years for no particular reason. It's like, what?
Yeah, I mean, another piece of information that's come forward in these latest documents, I think, is that there's just so many pages in there that go to confirm a relationship and an actual working process between the CIA and the mob, and like criminals, and that, I think, in itself, although it doesn't go to sort of expose any more definitive answers on JFK, it goes to really show the level of corruption and wrongdoing that was taking place in the US government at that time. And look, we're saying 63 years ago, but I don't think a lot has changed, really. I think anybody who thinks it has, and that was just, oh, what happened back then, is a bit deluded. It just takes 63 years for this kind of stuff to come this far forward. But yeah, so there was lots of documents talking about projects or ways in which they were using the mob, unknown high profile, gang criminals, to get in with El Castro and his people. So they were using them in consort with CIA undercover to be able to get into El Castro's sort of inner circle, to find and spy against information. But it just goes to show that the CIA were making, effectively working with known huge criminals.
Yeah. So some of the other little things were some of the wording that they found in there, showing that the CIA had prior warning that Jack was going to kill Lee before he even did it. How would they know that? Because it was a complete, like, oh my God, out of nowhere sort of thing. But if they already knew, how were they involved? A British newspaper, the Daily Mail, received a tip that JFK was going to be assassinated 25 minutes before the event took place. This was documented in there. Who contacted the Daily Mail? Why? It's kind of weird. Interestingly, was it 2016 the last cache of documents got published? Was it 2018?
Sorry, what's that?
2016 or 2018? The last
2017.
2017. Oh, right, bang in the middle. When they were heavily redacted, yeah. And one of the things that this round of papers shows, that a lot of what was redacted was any mention of Israel. So all mentions of Israel in previous released papers were redacted out. Now it can be seen why they wanted to leave Israel out of the out of the media. But also, we've seen in these papers that an arms dealer made comments a day before the assassination to say that they were being backed by the Jews from Israel. So they were in the clear, and everything would be fine once someone takes care of Kennedy. So it just lends to this whole, like, hang on a minute. I'm just gonna. Could you just cover for me a minute?
Yeah. So on top of just to sort of jump away from the documents for just a moment and the release of these latest files, there was I was watching this interview with this historian that had that was basically being interviewed all about this latest release. But instead of talking too much about that, he was then saying about how not a lot of people out there in the public know that just, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, a piece of evidence came forward where they were able to reclaim a bullet from the vehicle. Um, and so basically it means that one of the bullets, and it's the one that was felt to have hit his back, the bottom part of his back, actually got embedded into the back seat, whereas that's the bullet that they suggest hit the driver in front of JFK. So they're suggesting that it came from the book depository at that angle, went through him, and then hit the driver. But because the bullet's been found in the back seat of the car going the other way, means that the bullet has come from the front part of the vehicle. Now, there are some stupid videos out there that sort of have jumped on the back of this and then have made claims using and showing pieces of the Zeebrugge footage, may claim that it was actually the driver that actually fired off a round straight into the point contact into JFK. I tend to disagree with that theory because the actual video footage doesn't show anything of the like. But there's a lot of circulated videos going around where they actually show it, but then that part of the footage where the driver stands up, it then cuts off before you get to there. So they're just using that a bit of the piece of the footage for credibility reasons, but there actually isn't anything to be seen in there that proves what these videos are stating. But it is interesting that this offers more evidence towards the fact that it wasn't a lone gunman, which we kind of already knew, because logically everybody knows that have done tests, very scientific based tests to test whether somebody could do that. And they got world-class shooters in, and even the best of the best couldn't replicate it.
6 independent wounds from one shot.
Yeah. And so, but this finding of this bullet in the vehicle goes to show that there was definitely. So I think that's more important than actually some of these documents, but it's definitely still interesting. But I think they're still keeping the more critical ones behind closed doors, which is frustrating.
But anyway, it's super interesting. Apparently there's going to be more released. I think Wookie said somewhere, he said Gene Hackman's death just before the release of all these JFK files, suspicious. He says all he cares about is the Epstein stuff. Well, that's the thing is Trump, by releasing all these JFK files, is a bit of a misdirection. It's like, keep the conspiracy theorists happy for a while to look in this direction whilst he burns stuff over here.
Yeah, whilst he's doing equally worse corrupt stuff himself.
Yeah.
It's just all suddenly toxic.
Courtney says that there was reports from a driver, a Russian ambassador in Australia, stating that the Russians were going to assassinate JFK a year before the attack. So, all this does really, all these extra little facts, I think are fascinating, and it really has helped to give a whole nother shade, another color, another texture to all the events, because we do know from these released files a lot more little details that were blacked out, that were missing, and the fact that the CIA sat on this for 63 years or whatever it is, just, stinks to me. And that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably where, I don't want to sound dramatic, but it's probably around the time that I watched Oliver Stone's JFK that I then became sort of concerned that this world would never be as fair or as safe as you thought it would be as a child. It was kind of like waking up into adulthood and realizing that, these people that are there meant to be there defending us and looking after us are just actually the ones that are just, abusing and corrupting us. And yeah, and it's still happening today. And there's craziness going on in the world. But luckily, not so many people popped off like he was. I think they learnt their lesson from how big of a thing that became. Although saying that, in the early years afterwards, there was still his brother, and was Martin Luther King after him? I think Martin Luther King was after, or was he before? Can't remember.
Yeah.
But at least things like, but again, I think that whole thing with Trump was just a stage. It was just a smokescreen.
Yeah. Courtney thinks that he finds it curious that so many people consider the moon landings footage fake, yet no one ever suggested that the Zabruda film was faked or, to cover up the truth.
You said that?
Courtney.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, that footage shows us enough, actually. Even in the Oliver Stone film, which I think was 90s, wasn't it? So we're talking about quite a few decades ago. Even back then, we'd done enough analysis on it to know, like, the bit where his brain, sorry to be so graphic, but the bit where his brain blows open, it blows open in a direction that wouldn't be in keeping with the direction that the bullet would have come from if it was coming from the book depository. So there's physics already in there that prove that what we're being told is the narrative, the official narrative, was not possible. It's not logical.
Did you ever see the time-traveling JFK assassination TV show by HBO? No, Wookie. I didn't.
Thank God.
I dread to think what that is. Although I did see an episode of Red Dwarf that covered it. I haven't got much to say about it, but just leading on, or adjacent to this one, is Marilyn Monroe, because there's been conspiracy theories over her death all these years, and whether she did, or the fact that she had an affair with JFK and had links to the mob. And I think it was the fact that when she died of a drug overdose, the coroner ruled her death as probably suicide. So I think he probably meant it might have been an accidental overdose, or, whether it was actually like on purpose. But the official ruling was probable suicide. And that kind of, the probable there with her connections and the JFK link and all that, led to there being many conspiracy theories that she was offed by the CIA because of the JFK link, or the fact that she had links to mobsters and found out stuff that the CIA was involved with, and all that stuff.
Yeah, look, I think from what I know from the case is that, or her life story, is that she played very heavily on both sides of the fence, being the celebrity rich Hollywood circle and therefore JFK, but she also played very heavily in the dark, sinister criminal side of things as well, and the people that she used to associate herself with. So I have no doubt that she was exposed to certain pieces of information that general members of the public probably shouldn't have known, at least in her time spent with John F. Kennedy. But I don't know. I think it's probably people that she got involved with from the criminal world that might have been accountable for that sort of staged suicide, possibly, or it could have just been a suicide. I mean, in those days, people didn't really talk a lot about mental health and watch out for the signs and stuff. And it is a catalyst for definitely people that are in the public eye and in the media spotlight. Look at Robin Williams.
11/22/63 was the time traveling miniseries with James Franco. Now, I have not seen that wiki. I've actually never heard of it before, but it's on Hulu. I will check that out.
No, I usually like James Franco.
I like James Franco, and it got 8.1 on IMDb, so it's got good positive reviews. So yeah, I might check that out. 11/22/63, and it's by Stephen King.
What do you mean by Stephen King? Well, it's written by Stephen King.
Yeah, written by Stephen King.
I do like a Stephen King writing.
Yeah. That looks like quality. Okay, we'll check. That's a good recommendation. Thank you, Wiki. Okay. Do you want to? Is there one you want to talk about, G?
Well, yeah, I think I'll just lighten the attitude for a minute before I move on to a heavy one.
It's a difficult subject to keep light, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I'm sure you probably know this, but I just wanted to talk about it. I mentioned again, I can't remember if it was off air or at the beginning of the show, but I haven't brought anything to talk about MJ and some of the conspiracies around that. We've talked about it before in the past. There's a lot of stuff out there. And, one of the most common mysterious or conspiracy theories around the death of a celebrity, everybody's got to be honest, is Elvis, right? Everybody says that they see Elvis alive and that there's a lot of conspiracy that Elvis cheated death and faked his own death. But have you ever heard of a gentleman called Pastor Bob? I think it's Bob Joyce. Pastor Bob Joyce.
Nope. Oh, I think have we not talked about him before?
I don't think so. I don't know.
He looks like
come
an
across
old
him
Elvis,
recently.
and he sounds like him. Is that
whilst Monte's doing his producer things and trying to find some online information, I'll give you some little bit of background. So Pastor, I think it is Bob Joyce.
Yeah.
Or is it Roy Joyce or Bob Joyce?
I think is it Bob Joyce? Possibly.
Or Royce? Bob Royce? I can't remember. But anyway, he's a pastor. And, he plays piano, he sings, he's got music out there on Spotify and Apple, and you can buy his church-related music. But he also has been known at times to sing a bit of Elvis. But when this man sings, and people have done you can find huge amounts of comparison videos out there, comparing the tone of his voice, his inflections and things like that. See you later, Courtney. Yes, that's the gentleman. That's the right one. And he sounds really a lot like Elvis. I haven't brought anything along to show you that because we'd obviously get copyright stung straight away but you can go out there and look at there's some videos where they've people have mashed their two voices together singing the same song sort of thing, and their inflections and how they sound, and especially when he sings an Elvis. There's a great video of him singing he dedicates the song to his wife, and it's the song I Can't Stop Loving You or something like that. Anyway, and then there's video footage that shows him talking. He says similar catchphrases or similar lines to what Elvis says. He moves a lot like Elvis when he does this sort of thing, when he's walking. And Yeah, it's really convincing story. There's a lot out there online and on social media that really champions and gives you lots of reasons about why there's a very good chance that this man is Elvis. And photo comparisons, they've done loads of that and said that he's got the same like bone structure. But there's a fundamental thing, unfortunately, that doesn't go in Bob Joyce's favor of being
Age.
Elvis.
Age.
Huh?
Age.
Yeah, because Elvis was born in 1935,
Would you
and
make him
records show that
90?
Pastor Bob Joyce was born in 1952. So they were born like almost, well, what's that? 15, 17 years apart.
Yeah, nearly 20 years. Yeah, 17 years. Yes. So Elvis would be 90 today. Yeah, 17 years difference. He definitely doesn't look 90.
No.
No.
No. So, I mean, unfortunately, I don't care what you see. And I'm sure a lot of the content out there now is just being pulled together by people using AI from the other stuff that's out there. So it's almost like this AI domino effect that kind of happens. But yeah, I thought I'd talk about it because at first, when I was like delving into it and going down the rabbit hole, I was like, "Geez, he does actually sound like." And it's weird when you see lots of footage of like Elvis talking in an interview, and he'll say something like, "Oh yeah, we just gotta go for it," and then you see this pastor doing a speech, he's like, "Yeah, we just gotta go for it," and they sound exactly the same, and but he's keenly been inspired by Elvis throughout the years. I mean, his voice sounds like he grew up listening to Elvis a lot and singing him. But it definitely breaks down when you go down the rabbit hole a little bit further and find out some of the facts. And yeah, obviously records and documents can show that Bob was born in 1952. That makes him significantly younger than what Elvis would be.
Good thought by Trucker. One Elvis isn't dead. He's just gone back home. Yeah, Men in Black.
Yeah, but the other thing, just to mention, sorry, because I forgot to mention what there's a few things that have, I guess, been fueled to the fire on this conspiracy, and one was that when Elvis Presley's daughter died, what was her name? Lisa Marie.
Lisa.
When Lisa Marie at her funeral, he was spotted at her funeral, which there shouldn't by any accounts be any connection with their family, but it turns out after people have really studied the footage of the funeral that it's not him. It was like somebody like Kenny Rogers or somebody that looks like another country singer. It wasn't Kenny Rogers, but it was
he does look a
country
bit like
singer
Kenny Rogers though.
Yeah, and so people mistakenly say that they've taken pieces of that footage and kind of blurred the image a little bit and said, "Oh, he was at Lisa Marie's funeral." And then there was something else as well that he's been. Sorry, it's gone out of my head, but there was something else that he did that sort of really fed into the conspiracy quite a lot. But again, it's been sort of recently.
Could Elvis had a love child at the age of 17?
That is a possibility. Yeah, I mean, look, they both hail from the sort of same region of America, so that's not an impossibility, right? Because I'm sure when Elvis was 17, wasn't he already famous? Like he hit fame at 16 or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
So he was probably, or he was certainly out there, showing his wares and doing the circuit. So he was probably sleeping with a lot of women. He was a bit of a hound dog.
I do know the Ghost in Three Men and I think it's Three Men and a Little Lady. Was it, or Three Men and a Baby? One of them, maybe Three Men and a Baby. There's a supposed ghost in the window of one of the scenes, but it was disproven.
Yes, it's a stand-up prop.
It was a cardboard cutout of what's he called from Cheers?
Ted Danson.
Ted Danson, because he was an actor. He was playing an actor in that film, and he had memorabilia in the apartment of like movies that he'd been in. So it was like it was a movie poster thing, cardboard cutout of him as a prop. That's what it was.
Yeah, that was debunked probably about.
I think we
20
actually
years ago,
talked about it on a stream. That's how I know. I think
Yeah,
when we talked about ghosts on one stream, I think we talked about that. I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, it's one of those things that kicked around for ages. There's another thing that's similar to that about The Crow with Brandon Lee. Yeah, but interesting one. So yeah, I thought that was a bit light-hearted, not so heavy. But I do have a heavy celebrity death to kind of discuss, if that's all right, or if you got another one that you'd like to go through, Monty.
No, just on the Elvis one. Again, the conspiracy theories came from the autopsy report, as basically there was a lack of one. So lack of information around his death led to people making up their own minds. And the paramedics who arrived at the scene reportedly didn't recognize the man originally. And then people were like, how could you not recognize Elvis? He was the most, the biggest star of the time. So that led to conspiracy theories. And then, of course, because of that certain uncertainty at the beginning, and he was the most famous person on the planet, sightings then started happening. And that kind of fueled. He died in 1980. So through the 80s, there was like a wave of Elvis mania, of people seeing him all over the place.
Well, the thing is, you do get so many impersonators. Even back then, you had so many impersonators. So people are used to seeing people looking and dressed up like Elvis. And yeah.
There you go. Okay. Right. What's going heavy now?
Yeah, I got a little bit of a video to play first that's lined up. You may find the content of this podcast disturbing or shocking.
Why is this?
Please be. Okay, so. Oh,
there we go. Sorry. The warning didn't come up. Sorry.
Warning. Some viewers may find the content of this podcast disturbing or shocking. Please be advised. Okay, yeah, not to be dramatic, but I just think it's fair that throughout this next section, I will be using some pictures from a crime scene. So just if there's any kids or children around you, if you're watching at home, just be aware and be mindful.
Smile a rainbow. Smile a rainbow. You can go if you want.
So Courtney said he had to go, but he said before he does, his favourite celebrity death conspiracy is that of Kurt Cobain didn't kill himself. Courtney Love killed or had him killed, then stole his unreleased music and re-recorded it. Okay, so, the next section that I'm going to talk about is Kurt Cobain and the conspiracy that surrounds his death. So on April the 14th, the Seattle Post-Intelligence reported that Cobain was high on heroin when he pulled the trigger. The paper reported that the toxicological test determined that the level of morphine in Cobain's bloodstream was 1.52 milligrams per liter, and that there was evidence of Valium in his blood. The report contained a quote from Randall Bassell of the Chemical Toxicological Institute and author of all 12 editions of the Common Forensic Toxicology textbook, Disposition of Toxic Drugs and Chemicals in Man, who stated that Cobain's heroin level was at a high concentration by any account. And why that's important is because the known narrative is that Kurt Cobain's death was a result of suicide at his own hands. At the death scene when he was found, and this is where I've got some pictures to share. So this is the first one. Does that come up? I'm not seeing that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. I'm not seeing it.
I don't know.
Because I put it in this new present box.
I don't know. It's working though. It's all good.
Okay.
Just trust.
So basically, the position in which Kirk was found was with the shotgun on his chest and laying down on the floor. Forensics have presumed that he was sat up when he shot himself in the head with a shotgun. And that's important to note, that it was a shotgun. And so there's a lot of things around the forensics of Kurt Cobain's death that don't add up and don't make sense. So there's some great documentaries out there to watch. And if you haven't seen any, because I watched one a few years ago, it was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And before that, I didn't even know that there was any sort of question around Kurt Cobain's death, because we all knew, if you were around when Nirvana was about, and if you were an 80s and 90s child, you kind of knew that he was known for being very anti-establishment. There was a previous attempt to take his own life in Rome. Everybody knew that he was heavily addicted to heroin and addicted to drugs, and had an addiction issue. So you kind of didn't question it, really. And I never did. And then, as I said, about 7 or 8 years later, I started watching this documentary. Apologies, can't remember the name of the documentary. But it was really interesting how it went through some of the forensics and how a lot of it just doesn't add up. Things like, you know, they've ran sort of, again, forensic tests, but if you were sat in a position where you then would choose to shoot yourself in the face with a shotgun, the reaction of how then that gun would fall out of your hands and fall onto the floor, because don't forget, shotguns give off quite a bit of a kick. It's very, very, almost slim to no chance that the gun would rest and land in the center of your body in the position that you would have had it in when you shot yourself. It would have either fallen out of his hands to his left side or to his right side, but it was found in the middle of his chest. But the other big question, and this is the reason why I read out that bit about the levels of heroin and Valium in his blood stream once the autopsies and blood tests were done, is that the level of drugs would likely have prohibited him shooting, like even pulling the trigger, because he would have been so. This is why I'm saying that this guy, Randall Basalt, who is, you know, a professor at one of the big toxicology forensic, and is huge in that world, has stated that Cobain's heroin level was at a higher concentration by any count, because a lot of people have then counter-argued that piece of evidence to support conspiracy in saying that, well, he was so used to taking, even other heroin addicts were like, my God, Kirk can digest a lot of heroin and still be functional. So there's a lot of people that have led comment that they've seen him ingest a lot of heroin to that kind of level and still be able to kind of function. But again, it doesn't really back up with science, and there's a lot of other forensic stuff. So I don't know why I had this other picture, but there's another picture that I've got.
Wookie in live chat says, along with Kurt Cobain, John Belushi, River Phoenix, Doris Stokes, all left us too soon. I question Doris Stokes. No idea who Doris Stokes is. But she looks like an old lady, so I don't know who that is.
I can't remember why I featured this picture, but it's got something to do with... no, I can't remember, so sorry, apologies. I pulled this all together at the beginning of the week because I knew that I was having such a busy week I didn't have time. There are, well, actually I do have another key image to share. So again, sorry if this upsets anybody.
Oh, he was joking with the Doris Stokes. Oh, I see. All right.
So this is a picture of the suicide note that was left by Kirk, that was found in the greenhouse with him. I don't know if any of you have ever gone to the effort to actually read this. I've been online onto Reddit and where people have pulled it together in a nice format. It's extremely sad to read. Have you ever read it, Monty?
No, I've never seen it. I've never even seen it before, let alone read it.
But there's this in itself presents some questions because, again, it's the level of heroin that was in his. So either this note was written way before he took the drugs, which seem very unlikely, but there's been a lot of tests done on this where they've done writing comparisons to his known writing, and some of it hasn't added up. There's certain things that he says in it which people that know him and like family have said that he would never speak that way. So there is the suicide note again presents a lot of questions that feed into the conspiracy. However, what I wanted to say is it is worthwhile. Sorry, you probably can't read this off here, and I should have maybe prepared it, but I thought it'd be going too far. It would take a long time to read out. But I urge people to go and Google it, but if you read the suicide note, if it was faked and somebody staged this, they certainly did a good job of the content of it, because the content just speak of a man that was in turmoil, and it would, kind of lend into all the things that were known about him at the time. But again,
What happened there? We lost G. Okay, well, we lost G. Whilst we're getting him back, I will say that one thing about that writing was he was a writer of many, many songs. So if people think it would be strange for him to put pen to paper like that, you got to remember that he was a writer. So it's not necessarily particularly unusual. Oh, there we go. We got G back. You pinged off.
I've never done that before ever, but I accidentally and completely just hit the wrong button.
You hit the leave studio button. I've done that once. I did it not long ago, actually. Yeah.
So I just want to go through a couple of other things that present, because I'm not sure everybody would have heard about this, because as I said, if I rewind like just under a decade ago, I didn't know about it. But in March 2014, the Seattle Police Department developed 4 rolls of film that had been left in an evidence vault. According to Seattle Police, the photographs depict the scene of Cobain's corpse more clearly than previous Polaroid images taken by the police. Detective Mike Zielinski, a cold case investigator, was asked to look at the film because it is 20 years later and it's a high media case. Zielinski stated that the official cause of Cobain's death remained suicide, and that the images would not be released to the public. However, the images were released in 2016, according to a police spokesperson. The SPD receives at least one request weekly, mostly through Twitter, or known as X now, to reopen the investigation. This resulted in the maintenance of a basic incident report on file. So what I was basically saying is, since these images have been given to the public, they get such a high volume of people going, well, we've looked at them and you need to open the case for a murder investigation. The first to object publicly to the report of suicide was Seattle Public Access host Richard Lee. A week following Cobain's death, Lee aired the first episode of an ongoing series called Kurt Cobain Was Murdered, saying there were several discrepancies in the police reports, including several changes in the nature of the shotgun blast. Lee acquired a video that was taped on April the 8th from the tree outside Cobain's garage, showing the scene around Cobain's body, which I think was the first image that I shared with you. which he claimed showed a marked absence of blood for what was reported as a point-blank shotgun blast in the head. So again, you remember that image that I showed you? You couldn't see any spray of blood in that image. Several pathology experts have stated that a shotgun blast inside the mouth often results in less blood, unlike a shotgun blast to the head. If you will believe in that. But there was a filmmaker, Nick Broomfield, who decided to investigate the theories himself, brought a film crew to visit a number of people associated with both Cobain and Courtney Love, including Love's estranged father. Cobain's aunt and one of the couple's former nannies, and Broomfield also spoke to the Mentors band leader Eldon El-Juice Hoke, who was Nirvana's mentor, basically, who claimed that Love had offered him $50,000 to kill Cobain. Although Hoke claimed that he knew who killed Cobain, he did not mention the name and offered no evidence to support his assertion. However, he mentioned speaking to someone called Alan or Elaine, before quickly interjecting, "I mean my friend," then laughing, "I'll let the FBI catch him." Importantly, journalists Ian Halperin and Max Wallace followed a similar path and attempted to investigate the murder theory themselves, based on evidence gathered in interviews. They believe that Cobain wanted to divorce Love near the time of his death, and that she was looking for a vicious divorce lawyer to help crush the prenuptial agreement she had reportedly signed that would keep their respective fortunes separate in the event of a divorce. They also made a case because Nicholas Hartshorn was an admitted friend of Love's, that this was a conflict of interest. Their initial book, Who Killed Kurt Cobain, was released in 1999 and drew a similar conclusion to Brewfield's film. While there wasn't enough evidence to conclusively prove foul play, there was more than enough to demand the case be reopened. However, it still remains closed by the Seattle police. Just trying to think of my top of my head. So other people that claim that Courtney Love was out to kill Kurt was her own father. Thinks that she had a motive to kill him.
That's pretty damning.
Yeah. His own grandfather thinks that he didn't commit suicide. And here's another interesting twist in the events. So again, some of these documentaries are very clever to, based on reports from both friends and people at the time, they've sort of built what like the days before his suicide looked like, what he was doing, where he was. And it was only a couple of days before his body was found that he was, or he left rehabilitation. So he was in a rehabilitation center, but he was roomed up with another heroin addict there, who basically has gone on file as saying that when the day before he left the rehabilitation, he was in such a positive place. He'd been doing really well, and he was having conversations about how he was really positive about life, but that there was big changes that he needed to make in his life, and losing the addiction to heroin was one. But then people question what were the other things that he needed to lose from his life, and that's where some of the theory fed into the theories that he was planning to divorce Courtney Love. However, a lot of things that fly against Courtney being the one to, who was out to kill him, was that it was only a matter of months before this situation that there was a similar incident in Rome where Kurt tried to take his own life, and Courtney actually raised the alarm to get him saved. So if she wanted to have him killed off, that would have been probably an easier way to have done it when he was trying to kill himself in Rome. So, but there is some really like damning evidence against her, because I think a guy who was hired as an investigator by her to follow Kurt has gone on record and is part of one of these documentaries. He wasn't paid to kill him, but he was paid by her to follow him and report in on what he was doing all the time. So that clearly shows an element of friction in their relationship or mistrust. But yeah.
Yes, I will say that everything we discussed there is all allegedly and hearsay, and nobody sue us. Yeah.
Well, yeah and no. I mean, the toxicological stuff is fact.
Well, apart from that bit, yeah. Wookie thought when you disappeared, maybe you'd been Thanos, and he says, "Welcome back to 2030 when you returned." Yeah. But yes, thank you for that one. One that I've got, which is a bit of a sort of left of field a little bit one, is Robert Maxwell. Now, I don't know if anybody knows who Robert Maxwell was. He was the owner of the Mirror Group. You know, that's the Mirror newspaper and a whole bunch of other organizations at the time. Was a British billionaire, I guess. He took out he had a yacht, a boat, and it was 1991, he took his boat out for a spin, and according to reports, had a heart attack, fell overboard, and died. It's just coincidental that at that time he was wanted, or the very next day after his death, he was due to go talk to the Bank of England, the head of the Bank of England, because he was currently $1.8 billion in debt because the Mirror Group had gone under, and the Mirror Group was missing 71 million out of its pension fund that he stole. So he was billions in debt and stole 71 million out of the Mirror's pension fund. And the day before facing the music, went out in his boat, had a heart attack, fell overboard and drowned. And a week later or so, his body apparently surfaced off the coast of Spain by the Spanish Coast Guard and was brought ashore. And his best friend, Ken Lennox, went out to Spain and identified the body. And only Ken's the only person that ever saw the body of Robert Maxwell and identified him. He was dead. The family went bankrupt. His daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine, I think that's how you Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine, would go on to become the partner of Jeffrey Epstein, and she's currently serving 20 years in a federal prison for child sex trafficking. So, yeah, there's a connection between Maxwell and Epstein, and even then, all the way back in the 1990s. But yeah, his daughter ended up mixed up in all that. And of course, this has fueled conspiracy theories that he stole the 71 million, took his boat out, and using his vast wealth, disappeared and, ended up in Malaysia or something in a compound, and had some poor sucker that they, got from somewhere for the authorities to find that his best friend identified as him, and it was never Robert Maxwell. And that, yeah. And that he didn't die. But who knows? It's probably one of the biggest sort of like you know, billionaire conspiracy type things in sort of British history, I think, of that sort of thing. But yeah.
I mean, you know, there's just absolutely loads that you could touch on in this realm. You know, Princess Diana would be another one, because there's definitely huge conspiracies there. Yeah, you could go on for days with this, and there's lots of other stuff that's come up, you know, with sort of more recent stuff, not necessarily deaths, but I don't know. I was watching this thing the other day, and this isn't so much about, well, yeah, it actually is, but you know, I was saying it's not about celebrity deaths, but it is. But I was watching this YouTube video. Now, I don't know if you've heard of have you heard of the medium Tyler Henry?
No.
It's a young American lad. Looks a bit like Macaulay Culkin if he was like 17.
Tyler Henry.
Yeah, Google it. Have a look at him. You will see that he looks like Macaulay Culkin, but
Oh my
younger
God,
than he would be now.
Does.
Yeah, doesn't he? Anyway, he's a Hollywood sort of medium, goes around, you know, supposedly knocks on these doors. He doesn't know which celebrity's door that he's knocking on until they answer the door. When they answer the door, it may be a celebrity that he knows or he doesn't know. And he sits there and he does a reading on them. Now, I've watched a lot of stuff by Tyler that's kicking around. And, you know, some of it, you watch it and you think, he's got a different and definitely unique way of going about this and how he does it. Generally, I'm not a believer in the phenomenon, but you know, it certainly was refreshing to see certain things that he does that are different. But then there are other things that he does where you're just like, oh, gosh, this is really hard to swallow. Anyway, I was watching this video the other day, and whose door did he knock on? Corey Feldman's, right?
Oh, gosh.
And you know, he is early 20s when I think that this episode was filmed. So he doesn't, well, at least he says or claims he doesn't know who Corey Feldman is, right? Because, you know, Corey Feldman was a child star, and as a celebrity in his adult life, it can only be fair to say that he's like, you know, definitely like Z-list or whatever, and struggled. But I don't know if when I talked to you about Corey Feldman, whether you would know the story behind the two Corys. So basically, Corey Feldman was in the film Lost Boys, right? As was Corey Haim.
Yeah.
After the filming of Lost Boys, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman became really good friends. And so therefore, after that film, both of them hit the same barriers of having difficulty transcending that success of Lost Boys into future projects. And both ended up working on quite a few number of films together that were real, like, straight to video films. One of them I'm a particular fan of, actually. I absolutely love it. It's called Dream a Little Dream. But there were some real dire ones, like Driving License, or whatever it's called, Driver's Day. Yeah, there were some real flops there. But basically, long and short of it is, Corey Haim become very heavily addicted to drugs, to things like Valium. Really, really went off the rails. And in the early 2000s, the two Corys then made a decision to do a fly-on-the-wall documentary together, trying to reinsert Corey Haim's acting career. You know, he had been homeless a lot of his life now. He was in a real mess. He was a real addict. And he ended up dying from an overdose or taking his own life. Anyway, Corey Feldman's come forward, and he's been a big voice in this whole revelation that throughout the 80s and early 90s, there was a lot of child abuse going on with young child actors. And he's released several books and done several documentaries about it, but won't name names of specific people for legal reasons. etc., etc. Now, one of the things that comes through in this documentary, this Fly on the Wall documentary that they did together, was that Corey Haim was definitely saying that on the set of some of his earlier films, he was definitely abused. Anyway, this whole episode with Tyler Henry, he's going in and he's talking to Corey Feldman, and it's so cliche Hollywood, the way that, you know, they wait until the second person that he's making a connection with, and all of a sudden it ends up talking about it must be Corey Haim, and all of the background information is all the same kind of strange stuff that went on with Corey Haim. And I'm just like, oh my God, could this be any more staged as a plug for Corey Feldman's book and, you know, documentary series that's coming out about these revelations? It just felt so sickeningly Hollywood, that I was just amazingly put off by the whole thing, and it definitely cemented to me that there can't be any genuineness now in this Tyler Henry, because, you know, there's just no way that even if you made a connection like that, that those specific pieces of information would come through. It was just all staged. So go out and watch it. You can Google it. You know, just Google what was his name? Henry. What's his name again? What's the guy's name?
Corey Feldman.
Tyler Henry. Sorry,
Oh,
Tyler Henry. Google Tyler Henry, Corey Feldman interview or reading, and it'll come up and you'll find it. And if you know who Corey Feldman is, so Corey Feldman was also in Stand By Me and Goonies before he was in Lost Boys. But yeah, that's the two of them together. Such a sad story about Corey Haim. He was such you know, he was quite a talented and could have had a really good career, but it was definitely one of those celebrity child horror stories, and just struggled to come to terms with not being a success in his adult life, and turned to addiction and drugs and went right off the rails, and yeah, looked like a completely different person by the time he died.
Yeah, Mouthy was really good in Goonies. Yeah, it was Corey. Yeah. I've seen some gigs of his and things like recently, and oh my God, they are so cringe.
It's like,
it's just I get secondhand cringe energy from it that I just want to curl up in a ball and just
I can't do it because I can't. It's so cringy that I just feel incredibly sorry for the man that he. I mean, even in the interview with or the reading with Tyler Henry, he basically does confess that, you know, and I don't know if I believe in this, or maybe it was just an 80s and 90s thing, because I really was thinking about this afternoon. Because, you know, you think now with a lot of young actors, they're very, very heavily protected, both when they're on set and doing films, as in, when I say heavily protected, I don't mean from molestation. I mean that they're very heavily protected in the fact that, you know, school routine is like a real strong thing that they must have, and that is very heavily monitored and checked by people that make sure that all of these things are happening. They always have to have guardians with them. They get media trained, they have people that are working with them. But in the 90s, there was none of these controls, or the 80s, and it was a free-for-all. And a lot of these young celebrity, you know, because it was one of the first, probably the second generation where teenage pinups really became a thing, because, you know, obviously that only started really with things like Elvis and the Beatles, and then grew in the 70s, but definitely was in the early 80s that, you know, teen culture, teen fascination with like posters and pinups and stuff became a thing. And these young kids weren't media trained, they weren't told. And what Corey Feldman was saying is that, you know, a lot echoes a lot like what Michael Jackson says, and the two of them have been big friends. And I've got to tell you something interesting about that in a minute. But yeah, he said that, you know, when you're working like that as a child, you're not able to have your childhood. You've got to grow up really fast. So you need to take on adult responsibilities as a child. So all the way through your life, you're constantly seeking, trying to be a child. So he calls himself like a man-child. He says that he still sees himself as a child. And I just think, you know, it's so sad because he's still like desperately trying. rather than just enjoy the glory of your career. Go to conventions that are all about, Goonies conventions and things like that, and enjoy it, but don't try to reinvent yourself now, like as if you're 16 and you're going to have a whole career ahead of you. I mean, the guy's older than I am, I think. So, yeah. But the funny thing that'll make you laugh is that so Corey Feldman's always been like quite a good close friend of Michael Jackson before he died, and has been a very strong advocate for the fact that, because he knew him when he was a child, he said that, he's never tried, he was a defender of Michael Jackson. Whereas interestingly, Corey Feldman introduced Corey Haim to Michael Jackson. And years later, decades later, when they were doing this documentary Fly on the Wall thing together, the two Corys, there was evidence that, Corey Haim was going to say on camera that he wanted to tell his friend Corey that, MJ did try to touch him and did try to molest him. But Corey Feldman got really angry about it before it was like said on camera, and they had a big fallout. And actually, that's when filming of the series stopped, and they had a big, massive fallout about it. But that was interesting.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. Yeah, Wookie thinks the 80s and 90s were weird. Michael Jackson sleeping with kids was okay. Well, I don't think it ever was, to be honest, Wookie. I don't think that was ever okay. Even the 80s and 90s, that wasn't okay. Yeah. He also
It
claims
was a totally different world back then, wasn't
he
it?
also claims that Enya's Karaoke Flow was named after the two very actors. Yeah, no, that's not true, Wookie. Yeah. Have you got any more? Do you want to talk about MJ? Because I'm sure there's conspiracies about MJ.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, the biggest conspiracy that's really rife about MJ is the guy with the sort of burnt face that appears on shows now. I can't remember the name, but his voice sounds exactly like Michael Jackson when he talks. He's been seen talking to members of his family. Yeah, so, but I think we've talked about that enough, to be honest with you. I personally don't. One of the biggest things about the MJ footage is where they've got footage when the ambulance arrived at the hospital. There's some helicopter footage that's come to light where when they're pulling him out of the ambulance, they see movement. They see like his leg moving or his hand moving or something, which shows that he was alive when actually he was pronounced dead on scene, so he should have been dead. And there's somebody who's got a video footage of them then in a car park with that same van swapping out bodies, and they've checked like things like the registration of the vehicle as well to make sure it's the same one that was seen at the scene on the news cameras at Michael Jackson's property. But I mean, look, if anybody was to fake his own death, this would be the one that I would believe. Not just because I want to believe it, but because he had so much more to gain by faking his death than actually continuing onwards. He had made such an impossible agreement with the company that was behind the whole O2 concerts that he had to do 50 shows. And he was 50 plus by this time. He was never, and he was in a difficult medical condition. He was never going to be able to commit from that. I know that there's the documentary out. Who is this? Oh, I can't remember what the name of the documentary is, which shows him rehearsing at the O2 and that he was in really good condition. But that is bullshit, right? Because on that footage, they only show really short bits of him dancing and doing performances. So they'll show like him about 20 seconds dancing with the dance of the song. But that you do that, you practice certain segments of the song for bits, but that's no indication that he was in a really fit, good condition. In fact, he had loads of doctors around him, and he was on a whole plethora of medication that should have meant that he wasn't even stood up bloody horizontal most of the time. And so I just don't think he was ever going to be able to deliver that. And if anybody was looking, and even before all this happened, the whole reason why he overpledged. Oh, sorry, Theodore. Jesus Christ, you made me jump. I forgot he was there. Sorry, bud. Do you want a drink?
Oh my God. Oh. Your dog just gave you the fright of your life. Oh my God. I love it.
Oh, Jesus. I completely forgot he was sat behind me, and then he just jumped down from the sofa, and there was just this massive bang, and I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, what was that?
Being attacked.
Anyway, well, it wouldn't be the first time. I've had hats fall off the walls and stuff. Yeah, but what was I saying?
Brilliant.
Yeah, what was that? What point was I on?
I don't know.
Michael Jackson and oh yeah, I was talking about the financial situation he was in. So the reason why he overpledged with these concerts and made this because he was badly, already by this point in severe debt. The only thing that he was holding on to that was a score for him is that he still had all the rights to all the Beatles, the majority of the Beatles music, but he had lost his ranches, he had lost all his properties, he was in, he was close to claiming bankruptcy. This is how bad his situation was. So if anybody had reason to take themselves off the radar and get out of that circle, it would be him, right? Because he was pretty much at crisis point, really,
absolutely,
and truly. So. It wouldn't surprise me if it turned out that, and what's weird is this guy that you see, as I say, that looks like he's had some burns gone on his face. He sounds exactly like Michael Jackson.
Kind of looks like his face is like melting off. That's pretty bad. Yeah. Sean says we've accounted for Theodore, but where's Alvin and Simon? Yeah, very good. Where's my button? There you go. Mickey reckons that was the best part of the show. I think I might
show how crap the show.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mickey.
The rest of the show is shit.
Yeah. I will shit myself more in future to your pleasure and entertainment.
I will clip it and put it in a short. Yeah. You'll probably get more views than anything else we've ever done.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little bit of a short of it.
Yeah. But have you got any? We're nearly at the 10 o'clock mark, so the only other thing that I've got on my books to do that is very brief anyway, because there's not much to it, but I added it to the thumbnail, was John Lennon, just because I love the Beatles.
Oh yes, I really, really want you to find that picture. So I don't know what to Google. Google Paul McCartney leaving hotel, John Lennon in the background. Yeah. So I've seen this picture recently. It popped up. And again, if Monte is able to find it on Google, it means that it's a genuine photograph and not something that somebody's just photoshopped for the purposes of like Instagram or TikTok or something. But it was quite interesting. I don't know if you've seen that film. I can't remember the name of it now. That's the story about the guy who ends up, having an accident and the universe changes and the Beatles never existed. I can't remember what the film's called. And, things like Coke never existed. And he meets John Lennon in that film, and it's played by the actor Robert... what's his name from? Gosh, help me out, Monty. Robert Carlyle. So Robert Carlyle plays Elton John in that film, and it's really funny because you see him and you think actually if Elton was still alive, he may look a little bit like that. But the guy in the background there. So this was a recent photograph of Paul McCartney leaving a hotel in I think it was somewhere in the States. I'm not too sure. But yeah, there's this guy in the background that was leaving with him and the other people that he was leaving with, and looks like what you would imagine John Lennon would look like. That's the guy in the background.
He does look a bit
what's
like John
Trucker?
Lennon. And the some of the conspiracy theories around John Lennon. So John Lennon was murdered in 1980. Oh, I said Elvis was died in 1980. No, that was 1977. Sorry, but Lennon was assassinated in 1980 by a chap called Mark Chapman. This isn't the BBC football correspondent and the host of all the football shows. Mark Chapman. No, it's a completely different Mark Chapman. But people believe that he was influenced from outside forces, that possibly he was manipulated by the CIA, and all that sort of thing. Why? I don't know, because
I don't know if you can zoom in on that photo or not, so to bring it into more. But I mean, like you just said, if you age John Lennon, and some people have put some really good pictures together, and his nose, this guy's nose and sort of chin do very, very heavily match John Lennon.
Yeah. I've just pulled up something else because Trucker mentioned it. There's
About Lady Gaga being Amy
Winehouse,
Winehouse, or Amy Winehouse being Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. And I thought, I mean, a ridiculous conspiracy, right? But just pulling up a one of those side-by-side image things. Sorry, it doesn't like me going to Reddit. How do I... Come on. Just do it, will you? My firewall goes, no. Reddit's not secure. I want you to go to it anyway. It's not going to do it for me, is it? Bear with me a moment. Bear with me, caller.
Because computers already, rule the roost on this planet. They can tell us what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do.
I know. Thing is, I've got it on another browser. why won't you do this for me? I don't know. It's not working. Stupid thing. Yeah, it's quite funny. Anyway. Who was it? Lady Gaga, wasn't it? Well, if I can't get it up yourselves. It's quite amusing. Open image in new thing.
I mean, again, with the conspiracy with John Lennon, if we were to find out that, he was alive, it wouldn't surprise me because he must have wanted to get away from Yoko. He must have. I mean, it got to the point where he wasn't allowed to go anywhere without her. She had to go everywhere that he went. Didn't matter. So he probably got to the point where I need to get away from this bunny boiler.
Yeah, I was trying to bring up this image here, but it's not letting me. It doesn't want to load it. But I've never really considered Amy Winehouse and Lady Gaga looking like each other. But oh my God, they really do. They really do. I hadn't thought about it before, but there you go.
I think there's a little bit of similarity in the nose and the lips, but I think it probably ends there. Got to be honest with you. Yeah.
They do have a similar facial structure. Yeah, very good. Very good trick. I like that one. Oh, Buddy Holly.
Right.
That was another one.
Yeah, I don't think there's much conspiracy around, you know, the fact that he's not dead. I think it was pretty certain that he's dead.
Well, he definitely.
But it's just the whole mysteriousness of the whole toss of the coin, really, isn't it? That's the killer of that scenario. Anyway, before we wrap up, obviously, just to confirm, next time we come back in April, it sounds very, very likely that we're going to be going into one of my favorite subjects, and mysterious archaeology, and going underground to discover those paradoxes. So we'll be here talking a little bit about Egypt and maybe some other archaeological interesting updates or points of view from around the globe. Might be a good idea to bolt that in there as well. And then please do join me this Sunday, as I mentioned, for the thought-provoking supernatural movies with special guest Kevin Hines, who's going to be joining me as well. So that should be fun.
Yeah, I'll be joining you, or be in live chat for that one, chatting away to people. Hitler, oh my word, yes. Was he killed in Germany, or did he end up going to Argentina? That's another popular one, isn't it? That never really died. Which we have talked about that one on a previous stream as well.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Yeah, there's loads of these. Hopefully we've covered a few of them today in some detail.
I thought I'd cover the one which I thought maybe the least amount people would know about, and maybe I don't think everybody knew that there was questions around Kurt Cobain's suicide and whether it was suicide or not. But there's some definite, really strong, damning information out there that makes you just think of some questions. But I hope we've inspired your interest, as always, to go away and do your own sort of checking and digging and looking into these subjects. But yeah, go and watch those videos about Pastor Bob Joyce and just how Elvisy he is.
How Elvisy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you to G-Star for joining me again on this podcast. Thank you to everyone in live chat, especially the Wookmaster for coming along. Thank you. Trucker Timbo, keep on trucking, sir. Thank you for coming along and contributing a lot to live chat. Thank you to Mickey's Aquariums. Thank you to The Beard, Mr. Tavikins. Thank you to Sean, my co-host from the Star Trek Review Show, for coming in with his funny comments and and being one of our wrenches. Our main wrench, Smiler Rainbow, my long-suffering wife. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I hope your work has gone well this evening. Who have I missed out? Thank you to Courtney Anderson for coming along.
Did you say Trucker Timbo?
I've said Trucker Timbo. Yeah.
Did you say Maz?
No, my other co-host from the Star Trek Review Show, Maz. Thank you for coming along. And anybody else who I haven't mentioned? Anybody that's watching this after the event, watching it back, please feel free. Hart, or anybody else that's out there, Andy Sneath, Hart, anybody else that's watching this after the live, please feel free to comment what your favorite conspiracy was, or if there's any we didn't talk about that you want us to cover next time we talk about this subject, or do anything about it. Please comment in the video below.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a bit of a plea here. Like, please, what we need is more comments on our content on our channel. I certainly need a lot of comments, both on G-Star Vault and some of the other bits that I do here on this channel, and on my content that I do on the Underground Paradox, just because it helps. It helps us know if we're doing something right, something wrong. If there's no engagement and you guys just give us a like, that's nice. That definitely is nice, and thank you so much for that. But it's better to sort of just tell us a little bit, like if you liked something, say you liked something. If you didn't like something, say you didn't like something, and then we can shape it around. Or if you've got a question, but comments really help. So yeah, just if you are watching this, please do consider giving us a comment. I really would appreciate it.
And even if you find us boring, feel free to put us on loop overnight and we will send you to sleep, guaranteed. And you can just have us on loop playing over and over and over again. And
my story times are good for that. So that's what they're actually made for. So,
story times.
Go use them.
Yeah, do that. And a view's a view. But yes, thank you everyone for joining us. Of course, everyone in live chat, you're the people that make the show what it is. And join G on Sunday and all of us back at the Star Trek Review show next Wednesday. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend. Cheers.